It was Easter Sunday, April 3rd, 1836. But it was also something else. Something the rest of the Christian world didn't realize, and something even the saints in Kirtland, Ohio, were only beginning to comprehend. It was the Jewish Passover. Across the world, Jewish families were leaving an empty chair at their tables and an empty cup filled with wine, waiting for the arrival of the prophet Elijah. They were waiting for the messenger who would turn the hearts of the fathers to the children before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. They were waiting for him to knock on their doors. But he didn't knock on any door in Jerusalem. He didn't knock on any door in London or New York. On that quiet Sabbath afternoon, while the congregation had been dismissed and the noise of the world fell away, the veil was lifted in the Kirtland Temple. And he came. But he didn't come alone. Most members of the church know that the Savior appeared on the breastwork of the pulpit. We see the painting in our hallways. We know his eyes were as a flame of fire and his hair was white like the pure snow. But 90% of saints don't realize what happened immediately after the Savior's voice fell silent. They miss the terrifying, glorious, and absolutely critical sequence of events that followed. 3 more beings burst through the veil. 3 ancient prophets. Moses, Elias, Elijah. Why them? Why then? And most importantly, what did they carry in their hands that was so heavy, so essential, that without it, Joseph Smith revealed the entire earth would be utterly wasted? Stay with me because we are going to walk through the veil today. We are going to look at the specific keys these 3 angels restored. We aren't just talking about history here. We are talking about the survival of your family, your identity, and your eternity. By the end of this video, you will understand why the devil fights so hard against the temple, and the specific spiritual weapons you have been given to fight back. Let's go back to that afternoon. Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery are alone. They have lowered the canvas curtains, the veils that partitioned the pulpits from the rest of the room. They bow in solemn, silent prayer. The first vision opens. The Lord Jehovah appears. He accepts the house. He tells them, "Let the hearts of all my people rejoice, who have, with their might, built this house to my name." That is the moment of acceptance. That is the stamp of approval. But then the vision closes, and instantly another opens. Doctrine and Covenants, section 110, verse 11 creates a shift in the atmosphere that we cannot ignore. After this vision closed, the heavens were again opened unto us, and Moses appeared before us. Moses, the great lawgiver, the man who stood on Sinai. Why Moses? What business does he have in Kirtland, Ohio in 1836? Joseph records that Moses committed unto us the keys of the gathering of Israel from the 4 parts of the earth, and the leading of the 10 tribes from the land of the north. Think about the weight of that. For thousands of years, the covenant people had been scattered. Like dust in the wind, the house of Israel was blown across the nations, lost, forgotten, stripped of their identity. The world had forgotten who they were. In many cases, they had forgotten who they were. But God had not forgotten. Moses held the keys of the gathering. Now, we hear gathering in the church and we think of missionary tags. We think of knocking on doors. And that is part of it. But Joseph Smith saw something deeper here. He saw the literal reconstruction of a broken family. The keys of the gathering are the authority to command the elements and the nations to give up their dead and their living who belong to the covenant. Without this key, you could preach the gospel all day long, but there would be no spiritual authority to bring them home. There would be no power to reorganize the house of Israel. Consider the 10 tribes from the land of the north. This is one of those mysteries that causes so much speculation. But look at the principle. The keys Moses restored gave Joseph, and every prophet since him, the spiritual magnetic force to draw the elect out of Babylon. Why does this matter to you? Because without this key, you are a spiritual orphan. Without the gathering, you are alone in the wilderness. The world is designed to scatter you. It scatters your attention, it scatters your family, it scatters your values. The spirit of Moses is the spirit of coming together. It is the power that allows a stake of Zion to exist. It is the power that allows the church to function as a kingdom, not just a social club. When Moses laid his hands on Joseph and Oliver, he was essentially saying, "The exile is over. It is time to come home. But coming home isn't enough. You can gather a bunch of people into a room, but that doesn't make them a family. It just makes them a crowd. And this brings us to the second angel, a figure that has puzzled scholars and theologians for decades. Verse 12. After this, Elias appeared and committed the dispensation of the gospel of Abraham, saying that in us and our seed all generations after us should be blessed. Who is Elias? This is a question that stops people in their tracks. In the New Testament, Elias is the Greek form of Elijah, but Elijah appears separately in the very next verse. So, who is this man? Joseph Smith revealed that Elias is both a name and a title. It represents a forerunner, a preparer. Some leaders, like Bruce R. McConkie, suggested this Elias might be Noah, or perhaps a prophet who lived in the days of Abraham. But don't get hung up on the identity of the man and miss the majesty of the message. Look at what he brought. He restored the gospel of Abraham. What is the gospel of Abraham? It is the covenant. It is the promise of posterity. It is the celestial marriage license of the ancients. When God spoke to Abraham, he didn't just promise him land. He promised him that his seed would be as the sands of the sea and the stars of the heaven. He promised him that his family would have a right to the priesthood. Moses gathered the people physically. Elias gathered them covenantally. Think of it this way. Moses brings the bricks to the construction site. Elias provides the blueprint that turns those bricks into a house. The gospel of Abraham is the patriarchal order. It is the understanding that the family is not a temporary earthly arrangement, but an eternal order of government. This key restored the knowledge that your marriage, your children, and your grandchildren are part of a dynasty that is meant to rule and reign forever. Without the keys of Elias, we might have a church, but we wouldn't have the covenant. We wouldn't have the understanding of who we are in relation to God's ancient promises. We would be Gentiles trying to be good people, rather than the seed of Abraham claiming our birthright. This broke Joseph's heart in the early days, seeing the saints live beneath their privileges. They didn't know who they were. Elias came to tell them, "You are royalty. You are the seed. You are the heirs to the promise." But even that is not enough. You can gather the people, Moses. You can tell them they are royalty and give them the blueprint, Elias. But unless you have a way to bolt the structure together so that neither time, nor death, nor hell can tear it apart, it will eventually crumble. And that brings us to the third angel, the climax of the visitation, the moment the Jewish world was waiting for, occurring in a small room in Ohio while the rest of the world slept. Verse 13. After this vision had closed, another great and glorious vision burst upon us. Notice the language Joseph uses. Burst. It was explosive. It was overwhelming. Elijah the prophet, who was taken to heaven without tasting death, stood before us. Elijah, the man who held the keys of the sealing power. The man who could shut the heavens so it would not rain. The man who called down fire from heaven to consume the sacrifice on Mount Carmel. He didn't taste death, he was translated, specifically so he could hold these keys in his body and deliver them to Joseph and Oliver. He quotes Malachi, but he changes it slightly. He says, "The time has fully come to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the children to the fathers, lest the whole earth be smitten with a curse." This is the linchpin. This is the power that binds. What does the sealing power actually do? We often simplify it to families can be together forever. And that is true and it is beautiful. But it is so much more terrifyingly powerful than that. The sealing power is the authority to make acts performed on earth valid in the courts of heaven. It is the stamp of the king. Without this stamp, everything we do is temporary. Your baptism? Without the sealing authority backing the priesthood, it ends at death. Your marriage? Until death do you part. Your relationships? Dust. Joseph Smith later taught that the greatest responsibility in this world that God has laid upon us is to seek after our dead. Why? Because we cannot be made perfect without them, nor they without us. Elijah restored the welding link. Imagine a chain hanging from heaven. If one link is broken, the entire load falls. The sealing power welds the links together, husband to wife, child to parent, generation to generation, all the way back to Adam. But listen to the warning Elijah gave. Lest the whole earth be smitten with a curse. The word curse here can be translated as utterly wasted. Why would the earth be wasted? Because the purpose of the earth is to create a dwelling place for the family of God. If there are no sealed families, if there is no eternal structure, then the earth has failed its creation. If Christ were to come back to an earth where there were no sealed families, he would be coming back to a chaotic pile of disconnected individuals. There would be no kingdom to receive him, just a mob. The sealing power creates the kingdom. It organizes the chaos. This is why the devil hates the family. This is why he hates the temple. He knows that if he can disrupt the sealing, he can waste the earth. He knows that if he can keep you from the temple, he can keep you from the welding link. When Joseph and Oliver stood up from that vision, they carried the weight of the world on their shoulders. They held the keys to gather Israel, Moses, to establish the covenant of Abraham, Elias, and to seal it all together for eternity, Elijah. Think about the specific date again. Passover. The day the Jews set a place for Elijah. In Jewish tradition, the Passover commemorates the deliverance of Israel from bondage in Egypt. Moses led them out. It connects to the covenant God made with their fathers, Abraham. And it looks forward to the ultimate redemption heralded by Elijah. On that Easter Sunday, the types and shadows turned into reality. The Jews were celebrating the shadow. Joseph and Oliver were experiencing the substance. The keys of Moses mean you don't have to be lost. You can be gathered. The keys of Elias mean you aren't just a random human being. You are a child of the covenant with a divine inheritance. The keys of Elijah mean your love doesn't have to end at the grave. It is stronger than death. But here is the warning. Here is the part where we have to look in the mirror. We have these keys. They are in our temples. They are in the hands of the living prophet. But are we using them? Joseph Smith saw the potential of the saints, but he also saw the distractions. He saw how easily we would be lulled away into carnal security. If Moses gave us the key to gather, why are we so content to stay scattered in our minds? Why do we let the culture of the world dictate our identity? If Elias gave us the gospel of Abraham, why do we sometimes treat our covenants like a burden rather than a blessing? If Elijah gave us the power to seal families, why is family history often the last thing on our to-do list? The warning is clear. Lest the whole earth be smitten with a curse. That isn't a threat from an angry God. It is a statement of cause and effect. If we do not weld the chain breaks. If the chain breaks, we fall. When you walk into a temple today, you are walking into the room where Moses, Elias, and Elijah stood. The keys they left didn't leave with Joseph Smith. They didn't leave with Brigham Young. They are here. The gathering is happening right now. The covenant is available right now. The sealing power is vibrating in the altars of the Lord's house right now. But they require action. A key does nothing if it sits in a pocket. A key only works if you put it in the lock and turn it. You turn the key of Moses by sharing the gospel and gathering your own scattered thoughts to Christ. You turn the key of Elias by honoring your covenants and teaching your children who they really are. You turn the key of Elijah by finding your ancestors and taking their names to the temple, and by keeping your own marriage covenants with exactness and honor. I want you to pause and think about your own family. Think about the empty chairs at your table, those who have passed on or those who have wandered away. The angels of Kirtland didn't come to start a religion. They came to save your family. They came to give you the specific tools, the specific authority, to reach through the veil, to reach across the world, and to pull your loved ones into the safety of the covenant. Don't let these keys rust. Don't let the earth be wasted on your watch. The heavens are open. The angels have come. The keys are in your hands. What are you going to do with them? I want you to comment below with, I am preparing my family. It's a small commitment, but it sets your intention. And if you want to understand more about the hidden history of the restoration and the things Joseph Smith saw that we rarely talk about, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. You do not want to miss the next revelation we uncover.